And well, it says record. And it normally says this meeting's being recorded, but it didn't just say that. But so it is now
Okay.
recording. All right. So
Yeah.
episode 710 with Mr. Jeff Davis. And I don't even remember which episode it was. It's that they all start to run together. But I had said something along the lines of I don't even remember which guest it was. Something about crypto. Weissman. Okay, yeah. We were talking about crypto, and I love using analogies, and I love trying to make things sound simple, right? Isn't that what Einstein said, or one of the smart guys said that if you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough. And I made a joke that I had never actually heard anyone explain crypto easily. I'd had guys on here before that had started their own cryptos, that started their own NFTs, and I'd always kind of find myself 20 minutes into it, and I'd be like, you clearly know it better than me, but like you don't know it. You explain addition. There's no there's no you're searching for words. You're like, here's one water bottle, here's another. See how there's two? That's two. 1 + 1 is 2. It's pretty simple. And I think Dr. Weissman said the same thing. He goes, I don't think I've ever heard anyone explain crypto easily. And someone commented, it might have been you or someone else, that said, this guy can explain crypto easily. And
Weissman said Matthew Crawford.
okay. Well, I had somehow got in touch with you. Someone had met. I don't remember how I got in touch. Again, the episodes run together, but one thing led to another, and it was I was informed that you could explain crypto easily. So I've got you for exactly, it's 2:16 my time, 59 minutes, and obviously we can always do a part 2, 3, 5, whatever. But Mr. Davis, first, please introduce yourself to the audience, and then explain crypto to me.
Okay, I'm Jeff Davis. I am a retired engineer living in Mexico. In 2017, actually back in 2014, my wife, sitting over in her little office chair area, said, Bitcoin looks like the wave of the future. We should invest in that. And we put $85,000 into crypto at Bitcoin at 300. I went from being just a regular guy to a multimillionaire.
Holy shit.
And with those resources, I decided to, and at the moment in 2017, when the ICO phenomena was at its height, the Wild West gold rush in ICOs, I saw a mechanism where I could fund a variety of projects that I had accumulated over the years, and I now had the resources to do it. So that was what led me to find a fellow in the Bay Area who had some experience in startups, and we teamed up to create an ICO investment bank. And we began to build the groundwork for that. And at one point, I went to Washington with an investment banker associate that we'd hired to go to the financial services subcommittee and see if we could get them to help us to get the Securities and Exchange Commission to greenlight our effort. We met. I went to Washington 3 times. Twice met with members of Congress, and once actually went into the White House and spoke with a lower level individual. But what happened was, on the very first meeting, we met with all the Congress people on the Financial Services Committee, and they were all very friendly. The politicians, individual politicians, generally are very amiable. And that was great. But then we met with the Senate Banking Committee. And that meeting was like a Guantanamo interrogation. Their hostility was palpable. And I realized at that moment that there was going to be a war between the established financial people and cryptos. And I was a little guy. No way was I in any position to fight that. And indeed, after our meeting with them, we got a subpoena from the SEC, and that cost me 15 grand to arrange with a law firm for a 1-hour conversation with the SEC. That was a shot across my bow, and I didn't need a second one. So I put that on in cold storage and moved over to other activities. Um, let's see. But having entered in 2017 into that crypto space, I got a very steep learning curve and discovered items about money, about um, the financial services worldwide system, Goldman Sachs, the SEC regulatory situation, and the various money police organizations of the Department of Justice and the Secret Service and the Treasury, etc. So, but the most interesting thing about it was the study of money and what money actually is. Uh, I think people don't understand, but the emergence of cryptos is giving people a lesson in what money actually is and how it works.
Yes.
And I'm going to add one more item here before I move on to the rest of the items, and that is that in 1933, FDR hired some of the worst criminals of Wall Street to create a regulatory structure that would then create restore confidence in the American capital markets. Now, on the same theory that you would hire a master burglar to help you prepare your house to have defense against burglary. And they did that. They created a system that does that. But they also, at the same time, and I think understandably, created a system that allowed them to monopolize that activity. They built a wall around all the funding of entrepreneurial enterprises, stocks, companies that wanted stocks issued. They created an exclusive club where they and they alone could deal with creating a situation where the public could invest in stocks. You can get a private investor, people called qualified investors, which amounts to someone with more than $2 million in net worth, to privately invest in any kind of a startup company with any kind of an idea, uh, almost without any regulatory oversight. But if you want the public to be involved with a stock that's offered for public sale, you have to go through a very complicated process where you prove that the company you're issuing the stock has an established record, it's already profitable. You have to show all of the numbers, understandably, in order to prevent fraud, people being taken advantage of, as they were by the Wall Street, what can I call them,
Cartel.
operators, before, leading up to 1929. So, what I discovered is that this monopoly prevents the kind of entrepreneurial activity, robust entrepreneurial activity. Anyone, anywhere with a cell phone can take their idea and run with it and offer it to the public. The regulatory restrictions prevent that. And I think most people take it for granted that that system is kind of like gravity or water running downhill. It's a natural situation based on kind of some kind of natural law, when in fact it's a people law. It's Wall Street law. Um, and what it does is it blocks the kind of robust entrepreneurial activity that we saw briefly between 2013 and 2017 in the ICO space, in the ICO activity. And personally, I think that now, with the limited opening, there are still certain regulatory issues around ICOs, but we now have a robust entrepreneurial activity in that area, which could be even greater if the regulations were eased, if there was some permission given. And there are a number of people in Congress who are in favor of that and working towards that. We've come a long way since 2017, the expansion of the crypto space. Okay. Um, what do you want to know? And by the way, the crypto space has expanded so rapidly that although I had a pretty good knowledge of the basics in the years following 2017 and my study of it, like many, many fields, that expansion has run way, way far, way ahead of me. I'm no longer up to speed on all the details of the secondary levels. For instance, the current um, focus on DeFi, that is distributed or decentralized finance. I have the basics because the basics still apply, but there's so much activity in that space that I don't think any single human being is comprehensive in their knowledge of that area.
It it seems to almost be like medicine as it advances, right? You can go to medical school, but you go and you become a specialist, right? You go do a neurosurgery residency, and then specifically which part, and then you go do fellowships and publications, and you get so hyper specified. Um, so for me, I don't think I ever truly understood what money was. Embarrassingly, I'm 31, probably until last summer. I I decided to just I picked up a book. Well, I had read The Plot to Seize the White House by Jules Archer about 1933, Smedley Butler, FDR, how they want the business plot, how they want to overthrow the White House because they're getting rid of the gold standard. And that got me interested in the Fed, which I had never really read into before. I love the Cold War. I'm pretty well versed in World War II, somewhat well versed in World War One, but I had always known that it was kind of like the bottom piece, the foundational piece of a lot of power. And I was like, you know what, I need to learn it. And so I listened to the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. I listened to it like 2 or 3 times in a row, and like really, I what I got away from it was like, oh, it's the ability to constantly inflate, and then it's a taxation without really any request or any, you don't need a bump, you don't need to move tax bracket. You can just print it until all of a sudden you have more and the other guy doesn't, and you can offset it with gold or physical assets. But enough that that's about what I took away and understood. And then I understood like the concept of crypto. Oh, I was like, oh, okay, it's just back to the gold standard, right? It's like an ounce of gold now is about an ounce of gold now is, I don't know, with charges about 2 grand. That's, my rent plus my utilities plus my internet, my food, medical bills, insurance. For me, it comes out to about 2 grand a month. And you can look back to like 1912, and really for like a single guy with like an apartment in like not in the middle of nowhere, but not a city, it came out to about like an ounce of gold a month. And I was like, that's fascinating. Like that is stability. That's consistency. But then you look at the price of it and you're like, as we're seeing right now for future listeners, Thursday, February 17th, 2022, with inflation right now, right? You can see the price of things just going through the roof. So I understood the value of something like gold. And then, okay, so like, the was it the Bretton Woods conference, Nixon closing the gold window, FDR even saying you can't own any. I understood all of that idea of like, oh, so as we move from that, it's now backed by nothing, which is now that gold is the US dollar, and the US dollar is backed by the US military, is if we really boil it down to, which you could maybe even argue is more powerful than gold, right? So I understood that crypto is just, it's kind of gold in the most simple form. It's gold 2.0. But much easier to distribute. It's not, we don't have to like cut off a sliver of gold and go to the store, and who's going to take a sliver of gold? Like, I would like to buy these apples. They're like, this isn't 1850. You can't do that.
Gold's an effective storage of value. It's no longer used as a medium
Yes.
of exchange.
Yes. It's the NORAD bunker full of like supplies. It's like, you're not going to use that on any given day. It's there for like a nuclear winter. Now, with that being said, I don't understand what crypto is. I've heard a million people talk about it. You got to mine it, blockchain, proof of whatever, tethered to physical reality. You can't, but to me, like, I keep hearing these words, But whenever someone explains it to me, it sounds like they know it, but they don't explain it well enough. And to me, I'm like, well, then I still don't grasp it. I need someone to. The best teachers are the ones that could take organic chemistry and break it down into like circles and squares. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that. No one's done that for me yet. And that is what
Okay,
I'm tasking you with.
let me take a try.
All right.
One of the problems here is that sometimes people take something that is very, very simple and they make it complicated, or they expect it to be complicated, and then somehow it's difficult to understand because they miss the fact that it's really very, very simple. Okay, and I think that's happening here. The crypto people have as their primary interest in existence their personal safety and health and that of their friends and family. The second thing, or very high up on the list, is protection of their personal wealth, the stuff that they need to live with, their economic situation. You don't want your money stolen. You don't want your car stolen. You don't want your house stolen. You want all of these things kept safe. And that is the fundamental value of Bitcoin. I'm going to start with Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the foundation. It's the first item, and it demonstrates these factors very well and clearly. Bitcoin, uh, Bitcoin is the asset, and the blockchain is the safe that keeps that asset secure. And that really is what it's about. It's a place for people to make sure that their personal wealth is safe. The blockchain has two features which provide this function. One is it's distributed so that there are computers around the world processing the running the software that processes the transactions and maintains the record securely. This provides safety from governmental interference because the government can't stop that. No government can stop that. If the United States or China or Russia or India or anybody says you can't deal in cryptos, you can't mine them, you can't have them, you can't use them, that power is limited to their jurisdictions, and the processing of the cryptocurrency on the computers outside their jurisdiction continues unabated. So you have uh, protection from the government being able to seize your assets. They can't touch the contents of the blockchain. They can't hack it. They can't corrupt it. The cryptographic basis is what keeps the blockchain uncorruptible and unhackable. And the way that works is that you've heard of the 51% attack? No?
No.
No. Okay. There are any number of hackers out there who would like to steal using cybercrime. Okay. They can't do that to crypto because the fundamental way that the crypto processing takes place, called mining, um, requires a very substantial amount of computation. In order to get access to the underlying record of who owns what, that's the blockchain, you have to have the ability to overpower the rest of the people who process the cryptos. To do that, you need what's called 51% of the processing power that is used to maintain the blockchain. You have to have a majority. That way, the consensus, you can control the consensus, and you can do anything you want to the record that is the blockchain. Now, that you can accomplish that one of two ways. You can either hijack more than half of all the existing processing power, thus gaining that majority, Or if those folks don't want to cooperate with you, and they won't, they don't want to, you would have to set up a processing capability equal to what already exists. The difficulty of doing that is so great that is virtually impossible. And that secures the blockchain. So you have the distributed nature, which prevents anybody from screwing around, any state power from screwing around with it. And you have the cryptographic security, which prevents any hacker or cyber criminal or bad actor from overpowering the system. Okay. I want to go back a little bit and explain the blockchain and the technology behind it. Here is where the simplicity comes in. The blockchain is just a ledger. It's just a database that maintains the record of ownership. And people want their ownership to be secure. So maintaining the record with integrity is the fundamental function of this entire system, the Bitcoin network and the blockchain. Blockchain, let's break it down. It's a chain of blocks. We know on Super Bowl Sunday, block has one meaning. You're walking along New York's streets, block has another meaning. And then you have a block of stock and you have children's blocks. So you have a chain of blocks. And what kind of blocks are they? This is a block of data. It's just a block of data. It started out with the Genesis block issued by Satoshi Nakamoto,
yeah.
whoever he might be, back in 2009. And then there was a sequence. That's where the chain comes in. A sequence of data blocks. You got the Genesis block, that was the first one, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. I'm not sure what the number is at currently. And what happens here is that you have a record of the ledger. Everybody owns this and that, all of the wallets with all of the amounts in them. And then naturally, that ledger is going to change as daily transactions occur, moving items from one account to another. Okay, each of these transactions is then run through the SHA-256 cryptographic hash function, which reduces the information about that transaction to an alphanumeric string of 64 bits. Every transaction can be reduced to that. In fact, the SHA-256 cryptographic hash function can reduce any finite data file of any size to 64 alphanumeric string of 64 bits. These are hexadecimals, so it would be 0 through 9 and then A, B, C, D, E, and F. You understand that concept?
Yep.
Hexadecimal. Okay.
I'm holding on. I'm holding on.
Okay. So now you have a 64-bit string that records the Genesis block or any individual block down the line. So what you have is you have this 64 string bit of the last block, and then all of the 64 string bits of the transactions. And when that reaches a certain block size, I'm not sure what it is, 1 megabyte, that's the time to encode the new block. The new block includes the 64 string bit that was the old block and all of those 64 string bits that comprise all of the transactions that are going to be put into the new block to indicate what the current status of the ledger is. Okay? Now, that block of data is then given to the miners. The miners run it through their hash function. and they run it through. I mean, the level of the hash rate recently was 250 million terahashes per second, which means that they run the same hash function over and over and over and over and over and over again until they solve the problem. Now, the solution to the problem comes in a very specific form. When that 64 string bit starts with 7 zeros, that's the solution to the problem. And you have to run the damn hash function again and again and again and again and again until finally, out of just random chance,
Yeah.
you find the hash function with the 7 zeros in front. That's the solution to the problem. Now, why do they do this? They do this because if you need that amount of work, then no
No,
one outside can overpower the system.
got it.
So
It,
that's okay. Now let's go back a little bit to the ledger itself. You're familiar with Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol,
yes, I believe.
the movie?
Yeah.
Bob Cratchit, the little crippled kid, and Ben
Yeah.
and Ebenezer Scrooge, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I have an image in my mind of Bob Cratchit uh, sitting at that tall chair in front of the lectern in the cold office because Scrooge won't heat the office. And he's got a book in front of him. And he writes down all of the business transactions for the day, all the revenue that comes in, all the payments that go out. And at the end of the day, he closes the book. The book is put into a safe so that it cannot be tampered with. And he goes home. And the next day, they take it out of the safe, they open it up, and they begin to do the same thing. It's a very simple image, but this is what the blockchain does. It just does it automatically. And it keeps it safe not by putting the book in the safe, but by virtue of the cryptographic nature that cannot be corrupted, hacked, overpowered. So, the reason now that Bitcoin serves the same purpose as gold, but better because you can do peer-to-peer transaction without any intermediary, and it's of course it's automatic. So the actual cost of doing a personal transaction is lower than the cost which the financial services, the old system of banks, would charge you. It's just it's cheaper, and therefore economically it's an improvement on the old system. But it's really simple. It's just you maintain the record and you update the record every 10 seconds by taking that one, I think it's 1 megabyte block of data, all the transactions until they reach that size, and then do the cryptographic processing to create a 64 string bit with 7 zeros in the front that represents the data, that upgraded data. That will then be verified that it in fact is an accurate uh, hash of that data by the other participants, and a certain amount of bitcoins will be given to the wallet of the processor who found the solution to the problem, to the mathematical problem. Now, there are mining firms who have thousands of machines, and they run the hash and they make a lot of money because they're with their thousands of machines, they frequently are the ones to solve the problem. Then there are things called mining pools, where people who have one machine who couldn't reasonably collect on a daily basis, might take them months or even years to solve the problem. They just join up with whole bunches of other people. They pool their resources and they occasionally solve the problem, and then the proceeds are distributed equally among them.
There's a cool.
I see you wanting to ask a question.
No, I was gonna say there's this there's this channel that I tried to get the guy on, but I never heard back from him, which just is kind of par for the course for the podcast. You send out 100 emails, you get one response. But it was this guy who was somewhere in like Estonia or Latvia, and he had this warehouse. And I didn't know this with like I have a gaming computer right here, and it has fans, right? It's air cooled. But then there's water cooling. I didn't know this, that if you take mineral oil, it's it's non-conductive, and it's the weirdest thing. It intuitively, it's like dividing by zero. Your brain doesn't, you look at it and you're like, how is this working? But they'll take whole computers and submerge them into like fish tanks full of mineral oil. You're like, your brain doesn't compute. You're like, how is that machine running underwater? It's because there's zero conductivity, so it doesn't short circuit. So with direct cooling, instead of just pipes and copper plating, but 100% everything's covered, this guy had this bank of these big like freezer chests, something that you'd put like, just a ton of meat in for months at a time. And he had them filled with mineral oil, brought down to whatever the freezing point is. I think it's mostly water, so it's maybe like 33 degrees. It might be less. Um,
He
and he
probably
has,
cycled the mineral oil through, cycled the hot mineral oil
yeah,
through the freezer and back
uh,
again.
yeah. And he had this whole bank of it. And then he just had all these like graphics cards, like 3090s just submerged in there. And you're looking at it, and I was like, this is like to the nth degree. And I guess he's like one of the most successful miners. But that is like, you're like, okay, well, that's what this guy does. I'm not doing that. You're not doing that. So that's okay. The pool. So that's just something popped into my head. Yeah. It's so if you want to do it, I mean, if you had the capital, if you're a billionaire, you could, make a dent in it. But sorry, back to what you're saying.
Well, the Bitcoin mining machines, here's an element of it. Your ability to make money by mining is dependent on the rate at which your machines can run the hash function. And so they have these uh, ASICs chips that are specifically designed to run the
Yeah.
hash function, and they put them into the machines. And but the thing is that with the advances in chip size and speed and less energy, these machines are only really good for about 3 years
Yeah.
until the next generation of chips comes out. So, and the current top of the line um, chip machines, I don't remember the hash rate, some 100, 110 terahertz, terahashes per second. They cost 15 grand a piece. Now, that's not bad. I mean,
If you can turn the money. Yeah.
yeah, they're gonna crank out terahashes and they're gonna make you um, get your Bitcoin earned. The problem, of course, is that they're only going to last for 3 years until the next generation of machines comes out, and then there'll be a little delay because it takes a while for the company that makes the machines to ramp up production and sell a bunch of those machines so that the other ones they don't actually go out of date. It's just that when their hash rate isn't as good as the new machine,
Yeah.
they
It's
earn less. So you're paying for the energy and you're getting less and less
than what you
return.
could get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the machines they earn their keep
You,
relatively quickly. So it's not
you
it's a
there's got to
it's
be
it's a
some temptation. There's, as there always is in government. Man, if you're like the director of the NSA and you're looking at some whatever like quantum, like proto quantum computer that's classified and it's going to be classified for the next 30 years, and it's like you're a civil servant, but another party who's like, "Whoo, baby, this thing could, we could be cashing out bitcoins every second on." But you gotta imagine, is there that temptation for a state power? If that's just another field of warfare, economic warfare, man, you get the what is it, the Chinese like Tianjin, whatever, like Tianjin 1 or something, or I know the US and China, we go back kind of every other year with who has the fastest supercomputer. You got to imagine that that would have to be somewhere on the table for like just a form of just, I don't know, hegemony, whether it's, satellites or tanks or nuclear missiles. You got to imagine one of them would be, hey, can we print our own Bitcoin?
well, the worldwide money system definitely is a strategic issue.
Absolutely.
with the American dollar being the dominant reserve
Yeah.
currency, competitive currencies are an issue. China is working to generate a digital currency that's not a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
That's just a currency mounted on the internet that the Chinese will control centrally, just like the Fed and Treasury Department control American currency.
Yeah.
Um, and it looks like the objection of the government, American government, as expressed by the Senate Banking Committee interrogation that I went through, suggests that they're concerned that this will create a problem for the American dollar's hegemony.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stop progress.
Yeah.
This thing, because it's unstoppable by governments, is going to move forward because it's more efficient. It's going to be adopted,
Yeah.
uh, and people are going to have to deal with it. The Americans are going to have to deal with it.
You can't put your head in the sand. I mean, Truman saw the horrors of World War One. Truman saw the horrors of dropping two atomic bombs, and it was under his office, the Beard Lot Project, that the scientists started coming out and saying, the fusion bomb is possible, 1,000 times stronger than the A bomb. And I think Enrico Fermi said it was like it's an evil thing. This is not even the same as the A bomb. They're like, this is. I think they said there's a non-negotiable extermination factor to it. It's that big. And Truman was like, this is horrible. But when he had all the scientists in, I think the meeting lasted only 7 minutes, and it eventually concluded with like Truman cutting one of them off and said, "Can the Soviets do it?" And they're like, in several years, yes. Said, well, we have to do it because you have to stay ahead. It's just the creation of the Space Force. You have to. No one's going to say, all right, we won't do it. No,
Well,
that's not how nation states act.
well, it hasn't in the past been the way nation states act. But when the level of violence and the power of the weapons is so great that you face annihilation,
Well, yeah.
then perhaps it might be a good time to dial back the millennial old militarism thing. In the old days, you get 10, 20, 50,000 men with swords and shields and stuff, and on either side, and they clash, and then one of them gets the upper hand, and you have conquest. But only the guys who litter the field pay the price. You know, once you got strategic bombing, and then you add the atomic bomb, the nuclear bomb on top of that, we're not talking about a bunch of dead guys in the field anymore.
No, it's
So,
home. It's
um,
here.
and a certain presidential candidate, president who became president recently, said that our weapons are too powerful. We need to dial this thing down. We need to get along with Russia. But I can't remember who exactly that was.
It's not.
But it
It's
was
not.
a good idea. It was a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I've interviewed several times or twice, not several. Garrett Graff, author of the book Raven Rock, all about mutual assured destruction and continuity of government. Yeah, man. The survivors, you're living in like a sterile concrete room with freeze dried food. It's like, did you really win?
You really.
Did you really win? Even the poorest nation has your daily life would be better than it would be in a NORAD bunker. Um, but let's get back to actually, Mr. Davis. Can you monologue for 30 seconds? I got to use the restroom.
Yeah. Call me Jeff.
Jeff. Welcome to Jeff Cast for the next 30 seconds. It's all yours.
Let's see. What can we do here? There's of course Bitcoin as the starting point of the crypto generation, and following that was Ethereum. Now, Ethereum has a great deal more functionality than Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't allow for customized software to use its network. There is Litecoin, which has been created to create a secondary layer where Bitcoin can be used as the fundamental uh, currency of the Litecoin uh, uh, system, but Litecoin then enables faster and cheaper um, processing. With Ethereum, we have a situation where any number of financial instruments can be created using blockchain technology. And it also allows for the automation of a variety of other um, interactions. The term smart contract represents, conveys that idea. So that now, uh, and it's worth remembering that all of the software that runs both the Bitcoin blockchain and the second generation Ethereum blockchain, it's all open source, which means anyone can go to GitHub and find the exact source code that runs the Ethereum blockchain and launch their own blockchain. Now, the Ethereum blockchain is called a smart blockchain. Yeah, smart blockchain, because it allows what have been called smart contracts. And yesterday, and Binance, which is run by a gentleman whose nickname is CZ, and I would call him reasonably the Elon Musk of crypto. Man has tremendous energy and is like running full speed ahead of everybody else developing the crypto space. Um, he took the Ethereum code and he duplicated it to create what's referred to as the Binance Smart Chain. It's another smart chain. And as an example of how easy it is to take the old code and duplicate it to create your own separate blockchain network, I was looking on the internet the other day to find out, and I discovered there are now 25 separate smart chains using essentially the Ethereum code. The folks at Binance, CZ, has modified that code because where Ethereum has an almost unlimited number of processing nodes, that fact makes the Ethereum transactions uh, have a certain level of expense, too expensive, too costly, and the ability to transact is slow. So what CZ at Binance did was he created the Binance Smart Chain, but he limited the number of nodes initially to 21. My wife, who studies this for me, told me yesterday that he's expanded the number of nodes from 21 to, I think, 41. But this lesser number of nodes means they can run faster and run cheaper. Now, I said earlier that this technology has run away, way ahead of my ability to keep track of it. And as an example, when I first got involved, there was a listing of crypto tokens that was, it's called CoinMarketCap. Have you ever gone to CoinMarketCap? It just provides a list of all of the currently functioning crypto tokens. When I first got involved in this, there were 600 of them. Now there are 12,000 of them. And that 12,000 that are listed on the CoinMarketCap listing. By the way, CZ bought CoinMarketCap, so it now is under the Binance umbrella of resources. The Ethereum blockchain now supports 200,000 separate Ethereum tokens. They're a secondary token based on the Ethereum blockchain. And I tried to get a number. I wanted to see how many tokens are supported by the Binance blockchain. I wasn't able to find out, but I did discover that apparently there was one listing that showed that there were 3,000 new tokens issued in the last 24 hours. So people are piling on to this technology at a tremendous tremendous rate. And then there are, of course, all of the various structures, functional structures. You may have heard of something called the Distributed Autonomous Organization, a DAO. Okay. A DAO is basically an automated corporation. The activities of the corporation are written into code that is mounted on the Ethereum or alternatively any of the other smart chains, so that the execution of events that would normally be the process by which a corporation moves performs its daily activity are now automated with software. Uh, and that's just one of a whole bunch of functions that, frankly, I don't know about all of them. But I do know that any damn contract you want to create and any financial instrument of any sort you want to invent, you can encode it and mount it on a smart chain. So there's that.
Now, what there has to be, I mean, it has to be in the minds of people, though, the threat of like an EMP, right? I mean, nuclear weapons give off EMPs. EMPs themselves exist as weapons. They've always been feared. It's say they're not used for the same reason we don't use nukes. It's mutual assured destruction. But even like a solar flare or a coronal mass ejection, right? That the gold is fine. Your dollar bills are
It,
fine.
there are dangers. There are hazards to the crypto space.
Yeah.
And of course, since it's all mounted on the internet, anything that damages the internet is going to create a problem for the crypto space. But it will not be able to change the content of the ledger.
Mm-hmm.
Any information that is stored in the ledger will have a backup somewhere. I
Yeah.
mean, every single node of every crypto network has a record of the information that it is intended to keep secure. And you can blow up the internet, you can blow up the computers that process this, but somewhere there will be
Some
that last block, that last data block will exist. And once you get things fixed up again, you just fire it back
so
up again.
yeah,
And,
as long
and
as someone has it on some EMP shielded thing. Because like I have 710 podcasts. This is my well-being. I invested like $200 on these on this like Faraday like box thing and actually have one of the hard drives in it, just on the off chance that there's ever some right. You can have waterproof, fireproof, whatever. But I was like, on the off chance, I was like, I just need one copy because I can always put it back out and then duplicate it a million times. So someone's got it. Someone whose wealth is entirely tied up on this probably invested $200 and just has a hard drive somewhere. Um, and but then that's got to raise the question, right, of intentional sabotage. Well, I guess no, I guess that wouldn't matter because if you still had all the records, I was going to say, let's say I corner the market and get a couple billion in Bitcoin. Maybe I'm some James Bond evil character, but wouldn't I want to maybe nuke the internet so I'm the only one with the Bitcoin and so I become king? But I guess it wouldn't matter as long as there's a backup somewhere, right? So that kind of
yes,
avoids that. Yeah. All right.
although we have a very interesting Hollywood script possibility
Yes.
where the master of evil does something somewhere and captures all the Bitcoin.
Now, now can
Played by Mark Myers,
yes.
Mike Myers.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Now, how is it that there's and just I got to run in 11 minutes. We're definitely gonna have to do a part two. How is it that there is a predetermined number of bitcoins when people say there's only so many left? How
It's
does
written
that?
into
How
the
did?
it's written into the code. The processing of the blockchain information uh, would reward the people doing the processing with X number of Bitcoin in the beginning. And then after a certain period of time, one half of X. After a certain period of time, one half of that. And after a certain period of time, and this lessened reward, the lesser reward cycle continues until there reaches a point in 2020, 2030, 28, 2028, I don't remember the number, where all of the Bitcoins have been issued. And the total is 21 million. Can't go past that. It's locked into the code. And of course, that I didn't mention it earlier is another function and value of the blockchain in that it prevents any dilution of
Yeah.
value.
No inflation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if someone loses their hard drive. I mean, it sucks for them, but it still just rides the price up higher. It just,
Okay. I want to mention something. I want to go to another piece of this that I had thought about before we met, and that is the way the uh, the cryptocurrency um, phenomena has developed. I'm going to take Bitcoin in particular. The computer programmers who built it launched it in 2009. At that point, only a few computer savvy techno weenies knew about it, and they played around. It was a little plaything for them. It had been intended and was intended, and it's now functioning as an online currency, a digital currency. There had been 3 or 4 attempts before that, which didn't actually catch on, but the Bitcoin clearly has. Now, what happened is these guys would buy 1,000,000 Bitcoin or 10,000 Bitcoin for $5, $10, whatever, and then they would sell it the next day or the next week or something for $10, for $50. That was fun. I mean, you put in $10, get $50 out, kind of like a slot machine.
yeah.
Okay. Then they said, well, that's nifty. I'll put in $1,000
Yeah.
and get out $5,000. And when word of that kind of thing gets out, everybody rushes to get rich quick.
Yep.
And you have a speculative frenzy.
Yeah.
So the value of Bitcoin went from nothing to 1,000 very quickly. Now, there are 3 kinds of people who deal with Bitcoin. More, but I'm going to categorize them in this way. You have the get rich quick, crazy people, that people who are nuts to make money and become billionaires, you know. Then you have the very calm traders. These are the kind of people who deal in stocks and bonds. They understand the patterns. They know when to buy and when to sell. Um, and then you have people who aren't really involved in either trading or have gone nuts with the rise of Bitcoin value. They put it there to be safe. They also notice that it increases in value and they're not unhappy about that. But they're a little calmer. These are the people who are described as holders,
Mm-hmm.
except that they
Huddle.
change the
Huddle.
spelling to
Yeah.
yeah, but basically they're holding on.
Yeah.
They're holding as it goes up and down and up and down and up and down. They're just hanging in there. Now, the cool heads, the traders, they understand how emotion drives activity in these markets. So they know, they have a concept of how the speculative frenzy will drive the price up, and then at some point, they and their crew will begin to sell, and that will drive the price down. And the people who put in at the top, they panic. They're emotion driven, and so they sell because they don't want to lose their money, and then they will sell. The holders will hold on. The price will go down to the bottom, and then the traders will identify that that's the bottom, and then they'll buy back in again, and the sequence will start up again. There's been a lot of criticism based on the concept of volatility. Okay, but let's go through the record for Bitcoin. Started at 0, went to 1,000, dropped to 300, went to 20,000, dropped to 3,000, went to 64,000, dropped to 32,000, and now it's back up to 44. This instability, this volatility should eventually stabilize when the initial period of the development of this financial instrument matures. In engineering, there's a concept of the transition, uh, uh, dynamic systems from 1967 at Case Institute of Technology. There, in any dynamic system, you have what's the transitory state and the steady state. We're in the transitory state of Bitcoin development. When, I don't know, it'll take 10 years more, but eventually, when it becomes an established international currency, it should steady up. And this rapid fluctuation should settle down. But at the moment, it's on its way up.
Yeah.
And whether it goes like this or whether it goes like this, it's the average is like this. So people are getting into it, seeing that value.
So
Okay.
got like 5 minutes left. I'm an idiot and I have another podcast after this, but I'm going to email you and we're going to set up another one because I do want to pick your brain more. Um, will Bitcoin be replaced by more efficient cryptocurrencies? Is it not the end game? Is it like everything? Is there going to be a Darwinian selection? There's going to be something that moves faster, more efficiently, is somehow even more secure?
Two things. One, uh, digital technology, unlike material technology, is more easily and rapidly able to be upgraded.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin has a development team, and they understand that the excuse me, energy usage is an issue, and the speed of processing is an issue. So they're going to work to try to reduce that. So Bitcoin's underlying software will evolve. But you're absolutely right that other currencies, that other digital assets that are more favorable, faster transaction speed, lower transaction costs, will arise as competitors. I think there are a few of them out there already. Bitcoin occupies the um, what's it called, the pride of place, because it was the first
Yeah.
and it's doing so well. Okay, Ethereum, for instance, and we'll move over to Ethereum. Their network began using that same um, proof of work that requires so much energy, but they are now transitioning over to something called proof of stake, which means that people who own Ethereum, they put their Ethereum into a special um, blockchain called the Ethereum 2, and uh, they become the verifiers of the validity of the blockchain um, record. That eliminates that processing, that cryptographic processing burden, which is used on Bitcoin to secure the network. This, so those folks, and Ethereum is moving from proof of work to proof of stake. They figure another year or so before all of the Ethereum blockchain gets transitioned over to Ethereum 2.0, which is the proof of stake blockchain. But this kind of evolution is what you're talking about and will inevitably happen, and more rapidly than, let's say, any kind of physical technology. You know, with automobiles, for instance, you had your Henry Ford's first
Model
thing
2.
with the
Yeah.
tiller and everything. Well, when you move to you design that, you tool up for it, you make it, you use it, you find out how you can improve it, then you design the improvements, you change the tooling, you manufacture again, and then you repeat this process year over year over year, but it takes longer because you're dealing in a mechanical situation rather than a software situation where you can go much more quickly than that.
Yeah. Um, because my next guest just entered the room, so I'm gonna have to cut this one off. Jeff, that was a fascinating talk. I'm gonna email you. I'd like to do another episode sooner than later. Normally, I space get guests out like a month. I'm gonna email you. I think doing one next week would be cool. And I'll be sure not to book two, and I can just let it run. I would love to just pick your brain for a couple hours.
I had a great time.
So
Let's
did
do
I.
it.
Thank you so much, man. I'll email to you when it's up. I've got this next podcast I got to do, so it won't be up till later today. I'll shoot you an email and we'll absolutely set it up. I will clear the whole day for it and we will go even further into it. Thank you so much for your time, man.
And thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Catch you later.
You as well. Thank you.